Hi, I'm Jenny Brown. Welcome to this week's edition of MFB News. I hope you're all really well and that you had a truly wonderful long Easter bank holiday weekend. Sorry for not being around last week. I was overseas for a week having a little holiday, which was wonderful, but I'm back now, sadly. And I'm sitting here and actually I've had to move backwards because the sun is streaming in through the window, which is a real treat actually. I think it's going to last for about 2 hours today and then we're returning to gale force winds and rain, so I'm going to absolutely make the most of it. Now, in terms of what we've got for you today, we're going to be doing our usual roundup on what's been happening with the lenders. We're going to talk a bit about what's going on with swap rates, latest predictions for base rate as well, because all this stuff kind of links in and is really important. And then I'm going to be sharing with you the latest results from the Home Track rental market report. It's a really long report, it's about 11 pages, but I've gone through and had a really good read of it, and there's some really interesting stuff in there that I really want to share with you. Now, before we go into that, just to update you, 2 weeks ago when I last spoke to you, I did say that I was hoping that I was going to be coming to you with a really positive update in terms of the getting back my buy-to-let property from my non-paying tenant. 2 weeks on and there is absolutely zero updates. So I will continue updating with you with changes or not, as the case may be, but for now, no further movement there. Okay, now you would think that having not been here for a couple of weeks, we're going to be awash with lender updates. Now there have been more that I'm going to talk to you about, but some of them were so long ago and really quite inconsequential that I don't feel the need to kind of go through absolutely everything. But in the more recent days, we have seen some positive changes, and I think that the word positive is really key here. All the time we're seeing things improve, be it criteria changes, pricing changes. Things are very slowly improving. What we're not expecting at any point in the near future is some kind of utopia moment where suddenly everything drops by 1.5% or anything like that. But what we are seeing is very small incremental improvements in terms of mortgage rates and also criteria. Lenders are looking at the levels of business that are coming in. They're scratching their heads thinking, well, we can only price things down so far because of our cost of funds. What else can we do? Let's relook at our criteria and see if there's anything we can do there, broaden our appetite slightly to try and drive in and win some more business. So things are all going in the right direction, but like I say, there's going to be no sort of overnight hallelujah moment or anything like that. So what we have seen is, first of all, Virgin makes some changes to their pricing downwards. They've introduced some 60% loan to value fixed rates with flat arrangement fees of just under £2,000, and these are from 4.32. 75% loan to value rates, again with just under £2,000 fee from 4.52, and they've also got some 50% loan to value fixed rates which are from 3.98. so that's really keen pricing in the current market. Actually, Virgin as a lender, they're really good. They are fairly vanilla, so no limited companies. You can have up to 10 buy-to-let properties in the background. You need to have an income that's not from letting out property, but there's no minimum requirement on what that looks like. So even if it's £5,000 a year and from a part-time job, that's okay. In terms of their criteria, they have some nice things in there. So day one remortgages against open market value is something they can definitely consider, particularly where you can show that you've added value to property. So with day one remortgages, where we're going to a lender and saying, oh, so our client purchased the property 2 weeks ago for £100,000 and now it's worth 150. Of course, the lender's going to be sort of thinking, well, if you were able to pay £100,000 for it 2 weeks ago, how on earth is it now worth £150,000? How are you able to obtain such a discount? And what lenders don't like to do is from what we call distressed sales, where you're buying from people who are really in financial difficulty and kind of benefiting from that. That's not really the way the market kind of wants to be operating. So what lenders like to understand is, well, look, how have you managed to see such a large uplift? And there is, occasions where people are able to negotiate really good prices. Some sellers are incredibly motivated. It could be that you are buying it from someone who you're connected to already, and therefore just on a kind of sort of friendship agreement, you're able to kind of knock the price down. So there's lots of different reasons for this. But normally what we would expect is that a client would be saying to us, I paid £100,000 for the property, I've gone in, I've done some redecoration, I've improved the EPCs, now the property becomes lettable, or whatever it is, therefore I have seen an uplift in value by £50,000, and the lender will then be comfortable to accept that higher value. So it's really about the how have you done this, how have you been able to obtain an uplift in value so quickly. So on the basis that we can get Virgin and many other lenders work on the same premise, comfortable, they can lend against that higher figure inside of 6 months of ownership. The other thing that I really like about Virgin, they're quite good on things like ex-local authority flats. deck access, the kinds of properties that some lenders do tend to shy away from, Virgin are quite good at. So great to see a lender with a really strong proposition bringing down their pricing. Now moving into the more specialist end of the market, we've seen a couple of lenders make changes there. We've seen West One change their limited edition products. So limited edition products, and sorry for those of you who hear me bang on about this all the time, but it's where a lender will come to market and say we've got a limited amount of money, so say it's £100 million that we can lend on this particular interest rate, and once that rate, the amount of money has been used up, the rate disappears. So West One have got a series of limited edition products, and this is quite fashionable at the moment as lenders try and kind of manage their lending volumes, lending at prices that are probably a bit cheaper than their normal product set, trying to drive in new business, but not leaving the door wide open for them to get absolutely awash with business at pricing that probably isn't commercially in the round great for them. So West One have brought their rates down. Standard 5-year fixed rates are now from 4.64, specialist fixed rates from 4.71, and they've also got some limited edition rates, discounted rates as well, which have been reduced. Now West One as a lender are a specialist lender, so unlimited buy-to-lets in the background, limited companies, HMOs, multi-units, that kind of stuff. Their pricing from 4.64, you know, it's actually quite good, but as always, I'm going to say it, and you know the drill by now, watch the arrangement fees. But like I say, it's always just encouraging to see a lender in the specialist in the market, which applies to so many landlords, not all landlords by any means. A lot of people still fit in with your Virgins and your Mortgage Workses, but for those people, which is the specialist market has been a growing market for years, particularly since the Section 24 announcement. It's great to see lenders coming down there as well. I've also seen the mortgage lender, or TML as they're affectionately known in our world, launch some new 5-year fixed rates, particularly aimed at HMOs and expats. So they have reduced their pricing on 75% rates for HMOs, and also their expat rates have now come down and they're starting from 5.89, and also their holiday let range as well has also reduced, so that's come down from 6.59 to 5.99%, so not an insignificant reduction from TML. Again, specialist lender, I'm not going to bore you with what that means, you know that by now. Now, in terms of criteria, we've seen Accord Mortgages change their rental calculation. Now, I am actually really excited every time a lender reduces their rental calculation at the moment, because this is proving to be a real challenge for so many borrowers. So what they've done is, what they've said is that it's the rate at which they're stressing the rental calculation rather than the 125 or 145% coverage. So what they're saying is, previously, if you were applying for a, excuse me, a 5-year fixed rate, the calculation would have been 125 or 145% coverage, assuming a notional interest rate of 6.5%. They've brought that down to 5.5%. If you were taking a non-5-year fixed rate, so 2-3 year fixed or a variable product, it would have been 125 or 145% coverage at 7.5%. That's come down to 6.5%. So we're really almost moving back into the territory of mini budget changes here, which is really, really encouraging. So we're not 100% there yet, but actually things are definitely going in the right direction. So that's really encouraging to see. Now, in terms of swap rates, gosh, it's it's like a yo-yo at the moment. So before I went on holiday, they'd been up and they were coming back down again. And actually, I did spend some time on holiday watching swap rates because I really am that sad. And they were easing back down and it was really, really exciting. And then they started going back up again. So where are we now? So 5-year swap rates, as of last night, were at 3.723. 1 week ago, they were at 3.61. 1 month ago at 4.031. So you can literally see how they're literally going up, down, up, down. Same story for 2-year swap rates. So currently at 4.183. 1 week ago, they were lower at 4.056. But 1 month ago, they were at 4.448. So things are literally going up and down. The latest kind of thought process for why swap rates have started moving back up again, there is some nervousness around the US and what they're going to do with the Fed. This is going to be a very, very difficult decision for them. We've obviously seen what happened with Silicon Valley Bank and others when the interest rates went up too quick, but there's no escaping the fact that the US has an issue with inflation also. So they're sort of caught between, I'm sure, a rock and a hard place. But the fact that the money markets have started increasing swap rates show that they are feeling quite nervous about what will happen with the Fed, because if the Fed goes up, there's a very strong chance that then the base rate, our base rate, will follow. So that really segues nicely into the expectations for base rates. So we were thinking that actually there were going to be no further increases this year. However, I think the market has been spooked slightly with the news across the pond, and so now people are thinking actually there is a higher chance. It's not guaranteed. I'm not saying base rate is definitely going to go up, but the indications are that they're feeling slightly more nervous than they were maybe a couple of weeks ago, and therefore actually that's pushed up cost of funds in anticipation of what may be a further base rate increase this year. Okay, now I'm going to go through the HomeTrack UK Rental Market Index, which is I really enjoy reading actually. Now what I'd say first of all is it's a really long report, and I'm not going to go through absolutely everything because I think it would be really boring for you. But for those of you who do have a deep interest in the UK rental market, if you would like a copy of this report, if you just email into us, inquiry@mortgagesforbusiness.co.uk, we will happily send it over to you. It's not something we can't share around. This is in the public domain. But here's the kind of excerpts that I found particularly interesting. So first of all, what they're saying is that first of all, rental inflation has slowed down to 11.1% from a high of 12.3% in mid-2022. A strong labour market and record immigration drove demand in 2022. Private rented housing supply has grown just 1% since 2016. Higher mortgage rates have further weakened the economics of investing for landlords, don't we all know it, impacting new investment in rental supply. The growth in overall rental supply is set to remain limited in 2023. Demand is expected to remain above average but lower than in 2022. Rental inflation for new lets, and this is a bit I think it's really important for you guys, will slow to 4 to 5% by the end of the year. The slowdown could be rapid in inner London and other city centres. So that's the kind of broad executive summary key points. Now there are a few sections in here which I found particularly interesting. So first of all, they're talking about rental demand accelerating from mid-2021, and it really gives HomeTrack's views on what's happened and why this was, which I find fascinating. So what they've said, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to just read this to you, is that demand for rented homes and rental inflation took off as the economy reopened in the spring of 2021 after COVID, and new visa rules attracted a major inflow of students and others for work. Our core measure of rental demand, inquiries received per estate agency branch, peaked in the summer of 2022, or double the 5-year average. However, with a third fewer homes available for rent than normal, demand per available rental home spiked even higher last year by 250% above the 5-year average. Demand for rented homes remains 10% higher than this time last year. Rents will continue to rise ahead of incomes unless we see a sustained increase in rental supply or a material weakening in demand, both of which appear unlikely at this stage. So that's kind of what's been going on. Now they go on to say that the supply of private rented homes remains broadly static. So while demand has increased, the number of privately rented homes remains largely static. In 2021, there were 5.5 million private rented homes in Great Britain, slightly more than the 5.4 million in 2016. And this follows a doubling in the number of private rented homes between 2002 and 2015, driven by landlords using buy-to-let mortgages. So I think it's fair to say that what they're referring to here, the buy-to-let market was absolutely booming. The number of people acquiring buy-to-let properties was absolutely huge, and that's why the government really, or some people believe, and I think it probably is true, the government stepped in and started taking steps to slow down investment with the stamp duty surcharge, with Section 24, all these kind of things to really kind of stave off the number of people buying properties, because it was absolutely prolific. Now what they go on to say is, in simple terms, a static supply of rented housing means new investment that adds to supply is offset by property leaving the sector as landlords dispose of rented homes as part of ongoing portfolio rationalisation or exit the rental market altogether. We are registering a slight slowdown in landlord sales in the face of a weaker sales market. Some 11% of homes listed for sale on Zoopla in early 2023 were formally rented. This is a reduction from over 13% last year. However, levels remain above average. Tax changes, growing regulation and higher borrowing costs are leading many private landlords to review their portfolios and the pros and cons of investing in housing. Now this is interesting because it kind of echoes our belief in what we think we're going to see in terms of landlords divesting from the buy-to-let market. So at the moment, take away the fact that the rental yields are really good and growing. There's actually quite a lot of sort of negativity around for landlords in terms of tax changes, legislation, higher borrowing costs, all these kinds of things, the proposed renters reform bill. So lots of kind of negatives. So a lot of landlords have been saying that we've been speaking to, I've had enough, I'm going to sell up, or I'm going to get rid of a few, get some equity out and start paying off the mortgages so I haven't got to pay these higher interest rates. And these are all really fair comments. However, the reality is that when landlords are coming to sell properties, they're putting the properties on the market, and because the market is not where it was and they're facing a reduced sort of a sale price for their properties, a lot of them are saying, oh, actually, I'm not sure now is the right time to sell after all. So they're going to now sit on these properties, enjoy the higher rents. Obviously, things are going to wash through the system in terms of, excuse me, the Renters Reform Bill and all these kinds of things, which are causing people a huge amount of concern. Fast forward a couple of years, this will have all kind of come through the system, and people will know whether they now like the kind of environment or not, but also mortgage borrowing costs will have probably come down by then as well. So actually the market is going to feel very, very different to where it does now. So what we genuinely think will happen is that, of course, some landlords are going to simply set up, but there are going to be a contingent of landlords who right now are feeling very disenfranchised, think they're going to leave the market, but actually when it comes to it, because now probably isn't quite the right time for them to do so, they're going to hold on, and actually fast forward into a couple of years' time, things are going to feel a lot better and they're probably just going to carry on. Like I say, in many of these episodes, landlords are incredibly agile in terms of their approach and their ability to kind of absorb changes. So the changes come through, people don't like them. Of course, they're kind of quite verbose in terms of being unhappy about the changes, but actually when it comes to it, this is still their business. And so, and all businesses face challenges at the end of the day. Now, the other thing that I saw in here that I thought was really interesting is really just a breakdown of, we mentioned a minute ago that there are 5.5 million private rented homes in the market. Are these all let on ASTs to families? No, they're not actually, and this was really interesting. So 16% of these homes are not available on the open market. So what that means is that they're rented as part of a job or let under a secured long-term tenancy. 9% of these properties are HMOs. So isn't it interesting that actually 9% of all private rented properties are HMOs? I hadn't realised the market was quite that large. 18% of these properties are long lets with people on housing benefits. So one would assume that means really let to housing associations. 48% of the properties of the 5.5 million are let on what we would call sort of standard long-term lets. And 8% of properties are let on holiday or short-term lets. Now, the market data isn't sort of worrying at all, but it's just quite interesting to hear that broken down. And finally, the last thing I just wanted to share with you from this report is the kind of summary of how the market has performed by region. So the average rent in the UK is currently £1,119, which is an increase of 11.1% year on year from January 23. The previous year it increased by 9.3%. Days to rent properties now, so if you had a property and you put it on the market, it will take you on average 14 days to re-let it, which is very, very quick. And the average affordability for a single earner renting, their rent will take up 35.6% of their income. Now, in terms of performance, so London has seen the largest number of rent increases. So in the last 12 months, its rents have increased by 15.2, in the previous year, 12.8. Now, I think we just need to kind of caveat that with that is in the wake of COVID, where rents in London absolutely tanked. So London had a lot of catching up to do. A lot of people came back to London once COVID kind of went away or dissipated. So actually it's quite natural to have seen those rises as people return to the market. Incidentally, in London, the average rent is £1,978 per month, which represents, wait for it, 49.8% affordability of a single earner who's renting. That's quite eye-watering, isn't it? Now, the area which has performed greatest in terms of reletting properties is Glasgow. Average days to rent is 11 there. And then really amongst all the other regions, there's lots of different kind of ways that people have outperformed or underperformed as well. So that is the Home Track market report. Like I said, I found it really fascinating. And if you do want a copy, we're really happy to share it with you because it is quite long. Just send us an email and we will whiz that over. And that is me for this week. It is 7:16 in the morning, the sun is out, so I'm going to take my dog around the block before I start my day job of broking mortgages. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you, 0345 345 6788. Or as always, there is lots and lots of wonderful information available on our website. I will see you again same time next week. Look after yourselves, have a wonderful weekend. I'll catch you next time.